Then we get to Archie's TV Laugh Out Issue 1, starring Sabrina. It starts out with Hilda and Ambrose from the later 70s comic and cartoon. Hilda doesn't like the idea of Sabrina throwing a party and inviting a bunch of teenagers to her house that she thinks are just nothing kids and riffraff. Probably because they're just mortals, because I see no other explanation. Why does Sabrina want her friends to meet her family? More like, why does she want them to meet Hilda? She says she doesn't want to meet them because they're just common, everyday people with nothing special about them. I guess I can relate to that. She forbids the party. She doesn't want anything to get broken in her house. Even then, she could just easily fix it. She could easily just warp to a movie theater while they're at the party. Sabrina cries because she'll never be like the other kids. Ambrose tells Hilda to humor Sabrina, saying that a young girl has to have friends her own age. Hilda must like Cousin Ambrose a lot, because she immediately changes her mind. She says she might as well humor Sabrina because she's so ugly, and says that she has to hang around other ugly kids because who else could stand looking at her. And then Hilda's mirror breaks. That's a hilarious punchline. I didn't expect that. I giggled at Hilda saying while Ambrose was trying not to laugh, I don't know what it is. My good looks keep cracking these cheap mirrors. It's pure cartoon logic that they break. What, did a witch's curse do it? It makes sense if it was Sabrina's spell to get back at her. Hilda humors Sabrina and Sabrina hugs her, thanks her, and calls her a doll. Hilda's somehow surprised when Sabrina says that she wants her to promise her she won't use witchcraft on her friends. I'm guessing she will anyways, or the plot would be boring. If she had common sense, she would just tell Hilda to go to a movie. She laughs while saying she can't turn one of them into a toad, and Sabrina says she wants her friends to think her family is just like everyone else. And Hilda's offended instead of this always being the case for witches to avoid being persecuted by everyone. Isn't it obvious they never think her family was normal? Because of how Hilda dresses? Ambrose reassures Sabrina that Hilda will behave, somehow believing that. You'd think he would follow behind her and supervise her. And Hilda somehow thinks the party will be creepy because of that, and Sabrina thanks Ambrose. So the Archie gang meets Sabrina's family. She must be really new in town if this is the first time they've met Sabrina's family. I guess masquerade parties, what Halloween parties and costume parties were called back in the 60s. For no reason. And even says that the whole place is decorated for Halloween. He asks if Hilda's interior decorator is Dracula. Hilda takes offense to this instead of considering it a compliment at this point. Probably because she knows he's doing this to insult her. If Sabrina had a brain, she wouldn't have Reggie in her house at all. It never made any sense that any of them let Reggie spend time with them. Ambrose casts a spell to keep Hilda from bothering Reggie. Hilda relatably complains that she can't have any fun and there's no period after the word fun. I guess it was just a common thing for teenagers to refer to each other as kids back in the 60s. But it's so weird. They start to eat, and Hilda lampshades that she doesn't know how she let Ambrose talk her into this. Ambrose says they're nice kids that he likes. He should say, with the exception of Reggie. Hilda calls out Jughead on eating too much. Doesn't your mother feed you at home, Jughead? Did it ever occur to you that the other kids might want to eat too? Jughead just makes fun of her by saying that she's funny. She's just really unenthusiastic about having to point and instantly replace the food that he ate. He asks her to put pretzels on top of his plate. She zaps the plate to the top of the pile right in front of him, and all he says is that'll do fine. Oh, she put the plate of pretzels on top the normal way. She turns the pretzels into snakes, which scared Jughead into dropping all the food and wanting to run out of the house. It'd be nicer of Hilda to just zap the huge appetite out of him. But that's not what she's like. He tells Archie that Hilda gave him a bowl full of snakes and a live lobster nipped his nose. I thought he was getting out of here. Why did he suddenly get brave enough to stay just to tell Archie what happened? Sabrina does Hilda's spell, and Archie says that the way Jughead eats, he's liable to see anything. Reggie tells Sabrina to dance and wants to show her some fancy stepping, and his arrogance annoys Hilda. Hilda shouldn't be the only one really annoyed with Reggie. I'm siding with her. Can't you just kick out Reggie? She stands up to him by making him bounce on the floor on his butt. Archie laughs and makes me laugh when he says, "What do you call that step, Reggie? The can-can?" That's a funny name for a dance. Betty says that's a lovely dress Sabrina has on. Veronica's a snob and says it looks like a copy of a Paris original she threw away rather than donating to charity. Is this whole story dedicated to showing what unlikable jerks most of the Archie gang are? I guess that's good writing to make Hilda's actions tolerable. Hilda's still a worse person than any of them, but she's way more likable at times like this. Only Betty is someone I can actually buy Sabrina being friends with. The rest of them, I think Sabrina's only friends with because they're all hanging out with Betty. So she has to deal with them to be with her, and she wants to be part of their crowd. Now, at first I wondered if Hilda would like Veronica for being a jerk, like witches are told to be, but it makes sense that she calls her a creep because she's insulting Sabrina on her. You'd think Veronica and the rest would hear Hilda call Veronica that. Hilda uses magic to turn Veronica's dress into rags, and says, "What do they do, dearie? Drag it all the way?" Even Betty laughs at her. So it's not like Betty's always a nice person either, like I imagined her to be. Sabrina's nicer than she is. Betty just looks like a saint compared to the rest of her friends. And I don't blame her for laughing at Veronica because Veronica's a jerk. She probably has a lot of pent-up resentment of her. Sabrina uses magic to return Veronica's dress to normal, but that just makes Veronica and Reggie suspicious of the house and they want to leave. Sabrina starts crying and tells Ambrose what's going on, and he says he'll fix everything. As Jughead's about to leave, Ambrose zaps Hilda, causing her to have a guitar and offer to play some music for the party and sing. Hilda would be humiliated if she knew about this. I feel sorry for her, but I'm glad the party is saved. So Sabrina's friends cheer up and say, and Veronica says they had a great time and thanks Sabrina for everything. Ambrose returns Hilda to normal for some reason, and Sabrina thanks her, hugging her. Hilda doesn't seem to remember what happened and is suspicious that a spell was cast on her. This story was about Sabrina wanting to feel like the other kids so badly that she insists on having a party in her house. And common sense would dictate that she would tell Ambrose to follow behind Hilda to make sure she won't use magic on her friends. Or better yet, tell Hilda to go see the movies. Tell her to go somewhere else. The plot could have easily been avoided, but the plot was worth it, so I'm not too mad that it could have easily not happened. Almost all of the people that she used magic against deserved it. I could totally relate to Hilda for wanting to use magic on Reggie and Veronica. She did overreact to Jughead though, since she could just zap up more food whenever she wants. Ambrose could have easily avoided this entire plot by just casting the spell to make Hilda a nice guitar-playing partygoer immediately. Sabrina starts hiccuping while reading a history book. For no reason, whenever she gets the hiccups, her witchcraft goes haywire. Harvey calls out for Sabrina and there's a honk and crash. This annoys Hilda, and Zelda defends him as a nice boy Sabrina likes. Finally, it's confirmed that she doesn't like Harvey because he's not a witch. He wants to show Sabrina his new muffler, and Hilda zaps a cloth on his mouth to shut him up. Sabrina casts a spell to undo it, and he asks what's going on around here. She tells him to hurry up and drive them to school, and he says strange things always seem to happen to him when he's near her house. Then why does he keep going? And why isn't his memory erased every time they happen? He agrees with Sabrina that it's probably just his imagination. He's actually smiling when he says, "Do you remember the time I thought I saw a fire-breathing dragon when I opened your garage door?" She hiccups and suddenly his car is in front of a sailboat. Harvey panics, wondering how they got here, and asks if they'll sink. He considerately tells her not to look because it's too scary, and she warps him to high school and says it's not so bad. She confuses him and lets him stay confused instead of just erasing his memory of what happened. That's way crueler. Lying to him and making him think he's got a hallucination problem is a lot worse than erasing his memories. What if he went to a therapist and went on pills for it? He assumes his chop suey for breakfast is making him have bad dreams during the day, for some reason. She decides to send for Ambrose because he might have a cure for the hiccups. Wouldn't she already know that for sure? Wouldn't she have used it last time then? I guess she thinks Ambrose is smart, if she's going to him for help and not one of her aunts. I love that reality ensues, and she summoned him while he was taking a bath. But it's a miracle that he already had a towel around him. I guess he realized he was being warped away and quickly summoned a towel around himself. She apologizes and uses magic to make him properly dressed. He pities her and says this calls for the work of a doctor. Then a janitor in the broom closet gets scared by a witch doctor, and Sabrina says that's not the right doctor. Ambrose calls her dear and warps the witch doctor away. Ambrose says this calls for an old sugar remedy he knows. She hiccups Ambrose away. Wouldn't you have to imagine something for magic to work? This is stupid. It's not like she caught it from a witch in the other realm, because she never goes to the witch world. He ends up trying to offer Miss Grundy a spoonful of sugar instead, and somehow doesn't notice it's her until the next panel, because I guess his eyes were closed from tiredness. She thinks it's romantic, and then asks where he went. Sabrina has a feeling she should go home. Wouldn't she get in trouble? Then a balloon from a kid pops and startles her, which removes her hiccups, and she magically summons a whole bunch of balloons for the kid because she feels better. I like that it didn't backfire on her or get undone. This story didn't make any sense. I don't care if she has the hiccups, it doesn't make any sense that magic would do stuff she doesn't want when she's not imagining it to, just because she's hiccuping. The story's just about a bunch of stuff happening that doesn't really matter, until eventually she gets scared out of her hiccups.